We have been pioneering the current Telangana state RTC and then earlier, APS RTC. We have been pioneering the mobility sector. So whatever new technology that is coming into the market, probably we are the first to adopt in the country. So as I have mentioned, we were the first to adopt electric buses, and then we are the first to convert the buses, diesel buses, into electric buses also. So the plan, the strategy is to have entire the Hyderabad fleet with electric buses, whether we buy or we take the buses under GCC contract, and then of course converting the existing diesel buses into electric buses. And then of course the connected infrastructure, we have to develop the infrastructure also. Each bus depot should have adequate charging capacity, of course power capacity, which is a little bit expensive. Generally people talk about the buses only, but the behind the bus, the charger, and then behind the charger, behind the meter, that is another enormous problem. In some places where we have to spend about 16 crores, even 20 crores to electrify one depot. So that is the kind of infrastructure that we have to plan. So in any case, apart from Hyderabad, we are thinking of expanding the electric bus services to the other cities also. Particularly all the district headquarters should be connected by the electric buses. As on today, within 150 to 180 kilometers range, we are covering all the cities. And then once the battery capacity of the bus improves, then we will be crossing that 200 mark also, like Khammam, then Mancherial, then even Adilabad also. So this is the strategy generally we are following, and then we are very positive about introducing the electric buses.
You have raised actually very pertinent points, sir. We'll come back on this, the retrofitment aspect that you've touched upon, and also the intercity versus intracity routes that you have talked about. But that brings me to Electra, Rajesh ji. Electra has been one of the early movers in the electric bus journey and transition journey in India. How has the market evolved, since you've entered it, and what is Electra's own journey and ahead that you're planning?
Hello. If I want to take you for the journey of electric vehicles, how it happened, diesel and CNG vehicles have been there in India for a very long period of time. There was always a resistance from everyone, each stakeholder, to shift to the new technology, that is the electric vehicles. Now, predominantly what was there is that there were many questions on the new technology of buses which was there, right from each stakeholder, that is the state government department, the operators, the customers, all three were having different thought process. So the first thing, the transition took place is that many people had questions that can electric vehicle run? Is battery good enough to run for a long period of time? What will happen if battery goes down? Will the bus stop? How do you really charge such a big batteries? It was not seen. So many of the STUs, as Sir said, is that TSRTC was the first STU who was very, very keen to adopt electric vehicles. And so how we did it, we made a proof of concept to each of these customers. So we took the vehicle, we went to each of the state government department, we gave a trial to each of these departments that this vehicle can run. Once they saw the vehicle, there was a lot of keenness from everybody to come and see that how it runs. And when they sat inside, when they ran this for a long period of time, each of these SUs said that, okay, we will start adopting and moving forward to electric vehicles. Government had many policies. It had FAME 1, then came FAME 2, then PM E-Drive with different, what we call the subsidies, starting from more than 1 crore of rupees, then 50 lakhs, then 35 lakhs, to bring the TCO of the electric vehicles equivalent to diesel vehicles. So this made a good win-win situation for the OEMs also, made a good for state government also, and made a good for operators also. So first adoption came from FAME1, and we are very thankful for TSRTC and Bombay. These were the two STUs who took the vehicle on a gross cost contract, which was a new model in electric vehicles. And very proud to say that TSRTC ran these vehicles for 300 kilometers per day, which nobody could expect that electric vehicle will run 300 kilometers. And still today, TSRTC is running successfully. And then the adoption came. Operators were, the second stakeholder were operators. So operators were not ready to put money. They said that if tomorrow the vehicle stops and finance was not available, so they operated these vehicles in GCC contract. When they ran these vehicles, they were very good that it is a good vehicle and can be run. And third is the passengers. Passengers were very, very happy. When electric vehicles came, these were AC vehicles. Predominantly all AC vehicles came. So customers were having very good feel of this vehicle. So many places I have seen that customer used to wait for these electric buses to come so that they can sit, go comfortably like a car. And over a period of time, the ecosystem, the supply chain management also built up in India. And today we are very proud to say that Olectra is #1 company in India with approximately 4,000 vehicles sold to each of these departments. TSRTC being hometown, we have good presence in, and we would like to be present with TSRTC. Apart from this, I would say that the private customers in Telangana have also looked at getting into electric vehicles. Few of the customers like Microsoft, GMR, and many of the customers are now coming because they feel that if I run more, both capex and operating cost can make good difference to them. And this is the technology which will stay. Others, fossil fuel may increase price, maintenance over a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the corporate net zero targets are also driving that, and you have also rightly mentioned TSRTC, the state really pioneered not just in adoption of new e-buses but also retrofitment. From the early pilot for 1 or 2 buses, now it has scaled to at least 200 plus tenders, sir, if I'm right. So there's plans to move ahead. We'll talk more about it. But now moving from the large form factors to the smaller form factors, we have Raja Gayamji from Bility Electric. Bility has deployed electric three-wheelers across 15 countries, from Manhattan to Nairobi, and is also building a major manufacturing base here in Hyderabad. So given your journey, particularly which is pretty global, where do you see India fits in this last mile mobility, which is more electrified in nature?
Hi. So I think initial days when we started in 2017-18 timeframe, we were called Gaia Motorworks back then. So it was zero electric vehicles. We had to start all the business models from the very beginning. And there has been a lot of support from the government, both central as well as state, in terms of adopting electric vehicles. So the number you mentioned probably was at around 11% in the overall segment, but when you look at the last mile delivery space, the number probably sits around 30% or so in terms of adoption. So that journey took some time when it comes to, and last mile delivery was a little bit easier compared to the other segments because the existing hubs could be used. Customers such as Amazon, Big Basket, IKEA, Flipkart, all of their hubs had the capacity to have certain number of electric vehicles. And right now the movement has slightly shifted towards quick commerce with the bikes that Srikanth is providing. And I think in the last mile delivery space, I don't see any problems for adoption. It's mostly scaling the current level of 30% to 100% over a period of time. The second segment we are mostly present is the passenger segment. I think the adoption has been slightly slower in the cities. When you look at tier 2 or tier 3 cities, because the distances are smaller, it's a lot more faster for them to adopt electric three-wheelers specifically. But when it comes to cities, people still prefer the CNG or petrol three-wheeler when you look at the drivers who are adopting these vehicles. I think the challenge there is how do you make it convenient for the drivers to adapt electric vehicles even in city environments. So they travel somewhere around 150 to 250 kilometers on a daily basis. They require about, they don't want to wait more than 5 minutes at a petrol station or refueling station. So swapping is a way forward, and there have been various experiments on that front. Swapping in the last mile space has been more easier than the citywide adoption where you require swapping stations at a certain density of swapping stations. So we are currently working with some last mile, some ride-hailing companies where we are trying to set up a few swapping stations. We have a few pilots going on in Hyderabad right now, and we are doing a very large project in one of the countries where we are looking to deploy about 100,000 three-wheelers in a city over the next 4 to 5 years time frame. So similar policies, if we can, that policy was mostly out of necessity because they didn't have a lot of CNG infrastructure already. So we don't have to compete with CNG, we compete with petrol there. So the cost differential is almost 30% there. So those are the places that we are targeting. In Hyderabad or in India, you have to compete with CNG where the price differential is probably 5% or 10% compared to swapping. So if we are able to build that infrastructure, then I think adoption in the passenger segment also will take off in a huge way. And we are also working on a hybrid of the batteries that we produce, the swappable batteries. So most of the people know us as a three-wheeler company, but we also produce swappable batteries. And they are interchangeable between various vehicle form factors. It's not just the three-wheeler that we produce. We work with other OEMs as well, both four-wheeler as well as three-wheeler OEMs, where the same swappable battery can be interchanged between various platforms. It's not just mobility platforms, but we are also working with solar energy companies, mostly commercial and industrial applications, around 25, from 3 to 25 kilowatt in terms of capacity, where they are integrating solar with the battery packs, the same battery packs that go into vehicles as well. So it's a multi-purpose battery pack that can go across various vehicle form factors as well as energy form factors. That's the ecosystem that we are building in certain countries where we are currently operating as well.
Just quickly on that, have you seen that battery swapping works well also for last mile delivery? You have said that you're working to scale it up on the passenger side. Just a quick response and then we'll continue on that.
Yeah, it does work on last mile delivery space as well. So previously we used to work with Flipkart or Big Basket where the trips were continuous. You don't have a lot of, they used to have 2 shifts and probably lunch break in between was all that was available. So what used to happen is some of the other vehicle manufacturers where the battery swapping wasn't an option. So they would pretty much do the first shift with one vehicle and do the second shift with another vehicle. In our case, what we used to do is for every vehicle, there used to be 2 batteries. So one used to be charged when the first vehicle was doing the shift. So by the time they do the lunch break, they are ready with the, so we reduce the capex by almost all around 30-35% in such scenarios.
Thank you very much. So now moving from three-wheelers to two-wheelers, coming to Shrikant. Hala was actually founded on the conviction that shared mobility and electric mobility go hand in hand. And Hala also founded the EV as a service model. So from this, how have you really seen that the platform is scaled? What has been the journey there? And how are you looking to scale this further ahead going forward?
Thank you, Professor, for this opportunity. So, in fact, Hala has started as one of the research theses for me, and we started with a very small idea saying that how about bringing the entire mobility landscape into one particular simple platform where, say, Shrikant wants to go from point A to point B, I need to know the entire landscape. But then we were lacking a lot of data points, APIs and everything. So we started with a rental platform, right? Once we started rental, we scaled up to 1,000 units. And after 1,000 units, we understood that this is more of a finance game. If the finance becomes cheaper to a gig worker, then the gig worker would obviously switch towards it. So kind of control that particular space during the peak pandemic. Only thing that was running was the last mile delivery. We went, picked up the drivers, trained them, gave the vehicles, deployed in the last mile delivery space. And from there, when we started understanding, going deeper into the gig worker life, We realized that gig worker who is moving from north up to south here, south to north up there, they're not just looking for a vehicle, not just looking for a job, they're looking for a safety net, right? A finance, a insurance, a house, a food, a medical camp that can have, right? There is a reliability on the system. And today, with that ethos, we are trying to build the entire ecosystem. There are 7 different verticals that are working in Hala Mobility's wing, where we have Blue-based, Renoka, Kavach, Circle, Twinfinity, Zaira. Each one does a different unit. And all these vehicles that are running are controlled by the IoTs, are controlled by the VCUs, controlled by the BMSs. They gave us a lot of information. We refurbish those vehicles, redeploy them into the system so that there is no wastage that lies on the ground, right? And that gives us a higher uptime, higher utilization. With that in mind, I think in the last 5 years of a journey in India, we have grown 97 folds from almost 400 vehicles to 8,000 vehicles in March. Today, we are sitting at 15,000 units. By March 27, we are looking at 30,000 units, spanning across 9 cities. We have traveled more than 174 million green kilometers, saving tons of CO2 emissions and petrol consumption. But more important factor which gives us immense proud about it is it's 13,000 families that are dependent on this platform, right? So it's mobility for me is not just about transportation of goods or people, but it's about an opportunity that we're giving, and it's a bridge that we're creating, a livelihood that we're creating, right? So I think we have transformed from just being a mobility player to be a gig worker infrastructure platform. Right? And the way ahead is how do we build this entire ecosystem, what we called as seed ecosystem, sustainable ecosystem to empower delivery partners.
Thank you so much. I think you have really touched a very important point because as we scale electric mobility, if we can also scale and impact livelihoods through the gig and platform economy, that will really be, creating an agenda which is sustainable and also, forward-looking. Now, there is a need for, scaling more such manufacturing companies here in Telangana. So it is apt to come to Gopal Krishnaji. Telangana has been one of the more proactive states on EV policy, attracting investments in manufacturing, testing, and also skilling, etc. Could you give us a sense of where the state's EV ecosystem stands today, and what are the priorities, particularly when looking from the scaling of the EV ecosystem?
Thank you, Amartya ji. So greetings to all of the industry leaders. Some of you are familiar. The others, of course, I would like to interact later. And many congratulations to Asocham and the Hyderabad team, as well as ASCII for organizing this. And thank you for having me. So my name is Gopal Krishnan. I lead the automotive and EV sector in the Industries Department, Government of Telangana. The ecosystem here has developed over time, I would say. So the first EV policy came through in 2020. It got notified in October 2020. It's going to be 6 years in about few months. The overall broad aim or goal of the policy was to have 30,000 crores of investments in the state, to have 1,20,000 jobs secured here. Additionally, to have a lot of charging station infrastructure available so that the adoption also picks up, etc. So the broad aim from the investment point of view, I think we could reach that in the first 3 to 4 years itself, though the policy period that we gave it was about 10 years. So from 2022, we had worked closely also with ASCII and NRDC and others to kind of revamp the policy, or at least bring in some portion or some flavor into the policy where we had overlooked earlier some of the places, etc. So from that viewpoint, this additional effort that we put in came out as the Telangana Mobility Valley. So that exercise, through that, what we additionally wanted to achieve was 50,000 crores of investment and 4 lakh jobs. So again, Telangana Mobility Valley is what I would now like to kind of market more, because that is what we are trying to achieve on ground. And this particular valley is, we are looking at 4 pillars. And the first pillar would, of course, be manufacturing. How do we bring in more EV players into the state? How can the existing startups from, say, 2020 or 2021, those who were here, how can they expand into a larger area, have more, more capital expansion, etc. So from that viewpoint, we have about 150,000 acres of land under TGIIC, which is the land bank, the government industrial land bank. And this is scattered in 3 or 4 main areas for the automotive as far as EV and automotive is concerned. So we have Sitarampur where already Electra is manufacturing. We have Divitipalli where Amar Raja has set up a very big facility for battery. We have Zahirabad, close to the industrial land bank of government. We have Mahindra and Mahindra and their supplier valley already situated. And also the industrial bank that we have in Zahirabad is also started off for, started sales for some of these investments. And mainly Telangana Mobility Valley, which is going to be situated in an area called Yankatala, which is in Vikarabad district. So there we have about 600, 650 acres of land. And right now, as we speak, about 4 or 5 companies, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, and charger manufacturers, they have already said that they would like to have 50 acres, 30 acres, etc. in this particular valley. So that is the first pillar, right, manufacturing. The second one we started aiming at, say, 2-3 years back, we were together doing it, of course, was the skilling exercise. So under skilling, how can we have more industry academia partnerships, and which are the colleges within Hyderabad, within the state of Telangana that is more keen and want to adopt more EV courses, and then connect them with the EV players and the automotive guys. So that has also taken off very well. We have currently active 5 or 6 good courses on EV in different colleges, including Mahindra University, including Anurag University. There is something in VNRVJIT with ZF, IITs and triple ITs, etc. Also more colleges like Vardhaman Engineering, many more are showing more interest, Matrishri, etc., are showing more interest in connecting with the industry. So if some of you are present in Hyderabad, I would urge you to look at having some connection with some of the academia here, so that skilling is a very big thing. So when companies come here, they look for talent, right? How much talent is available in this particular area, etc. And that is for the white collar, of course. For the blue collar, we have a government entity called Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge. So under task also we have quite a lot of activity going on in coordination or in partnership with ASDC, Automotive Skill Development Center. So those are also areas which I would urge all of you to look at wherever possible. If you need some trades, some of your workers to be good at some trades, then look at that category. The third pillar, which started off everything, was testing and validation, where we invited some interests from different players like UTAC and Horiba, Blue Binary, etc. And finally, I think we partnered with TUV Rheinland from Germany, from Cologne, and an Indian entity, Indian testing company called Automotive Testing Systems. So both put together are also going to invest into that particular area in Vikarabad. So this is going to have a lot of automotive test tracks and a lot of testing and validation, because what we understood is that there are quite a few companies here, but then under one roof there is no testing validation available. You have to go into different places, and also the slots are very few. And if you have to go to ARAI or ICAT, again you will have to have a certain number of months of waiting period, etc. The fourth pillar, of course, is innovation, without which this particular industry will not move ahead. So just like T-Hub and T-Works, we thought of having sister entities. So from an overall, from policy point of view, I think today we have a much larger one, which is Honorable Chief Minister's vision, which is the Telangana Rising Vision 2047 policy. So under this policy, right now we are a $250 billion GSDP state, and the aim is to reach $1 trillion by 2034, $3 trillion by 2047. Of course, the year chosen because it is the 100th year of independence. And the overall goal of India at a very high level, the federal level, is to be net zero by 2070. But how can different states, which are much aggressive and more faster, how can different states achieve that faster, was the thought process. And from Telangana point of view, since many of you are from energy side, right? Also, please look at the Telangana Vision Policy document, because the goal of the state of Telangana is to achieve this net zero by 2047. And we cannot just simply wait till, say, 2040 or something and then start action. So many of you are already into it. You are into sustainability, mobility, transport, or even, movement of materials. So how can you move towards electric and charging stations and BESS? Even in the policy, I remember there is one portion which is one chapter is only for net zero. So how can, the hard to abate sectors that are there, How can we kind of start action in those areas to decarbonize? How can we look at different carbon credit mechanisms? So even for automotive and EV, today we are discussing internally on how can we bring in some of these concepts also, which is very new age for India at a very at a federal level itself. But how can a state like us, which is very young, budgets are limited, but how can we look at such things also to motivate more players like you to take this up in a very big way? I think I'll pause with that.
Thank you so much. I think I'll pick up on the point around training and skilling. And I think we'll have to also be mindful of the time. We have about 15 to 20 minutes remaining. So quickly pick up on that point around skilling and training. I'll come to Nagireddy sir. Sir, as RTC is already operating 97 plus depots, 364 plus bus stations. You're serving city, urban, semi-urban, rural customers as well. Fleet electrification, expansion, from intercity routes to intracity routes or, further into rural is an immense challenge. And as you rightly mentioned in your presentation as well, it needs coming together of multiple aspects, the financing, the depot charging infrastructure, etc. But one key part is the training and capacity building. So what efforts are being taken to really improve the workforce capacities to really operate and maintain the electric buses?
The question is, it's a good question. We have our own training academies in the state. We will be training all our staff regularly, particularly the driving staff, and then of course the other staff also. So as on today, the most of the electric buses are on GCC contract, where the operator provides the driver. And then of course we will be watching their performance regularly, and then the retraining will happen in our presence. Then with the induction of the electric buses by us also, either retrofitting or buying, and then we have to retrain our drivers particularly, and then of course other staff and maintenance staff also. So we have planned for this kind of training also. Then we will be collaborating with the already experienced leaders in the industry.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Coming to Olectra now, Rajesh ji, you have talked about the journey Olectra has. You also talked about the TCO angle in your initial conversation. So over the last 3 to 4 years, how have you seen STU customers, changing their perception towards e-buses? Is the conversation still about the upfront price, or is it now moving towards the understanding around the total cost of ownership, which is, overall better for the e-buses, or is it something else that you would want to share with everyone?
See, today, if you look at the electric vehicles, the total cost of operation is good enough with diesel vehicles, provided it runs approximately around 200 kilometers, then it is just equal to diesel vehicles. So this has actually helped the customers to come closer to what we call operating these vehicles. If you look at the things which has happened is from an incentive of 1.25 crores, it is now zero. At zero also, it is making equivalent to diesel, because the number of kilometers run by each of these STUs, the assured kilometers given by these STUs, and the supply chain management bringing the price closer to the diesel vehicles. So I see that in next 2-3 years, the adoption will be much faster, because now most of the STUs are now across India, they are well versed with electric and they are moving towards electric. That's straight thing. The second is the market of private, which is the school bus or the staff carrier. There, they run a kilometers of around 100. So there the capex cost becomes very huge. Until and unless the price of the vehicle comes down, or the customer is willing to take more trips on that. So that will take a year or two, where people will also move towards getting into electric vehicles. The third is the intercity operations by TSR, by government and private players. So government has already moved towards the intercity operations like Telangana, Maharashtra, Kerala, few of the states have improved. Apart from that, there are many operators. The the topmost operators have now shifted towards getting into electric vehicles. Many of the operators from Maharashtra have shifted, many of the operators from Delhi have shifted, Bangalore have shifted, and many are talking that they would like to go with electric vehicles because they make a better TCO sense with electric vehicles. So movement will happen.
This is wonderful to hear. And also, I think with the technology trends, with battery prices continuously reducing, it will further improve the TCO and the ownership. Thank you so much. Now, coming to Raja Gayamji, large platform companies like Amazon, IKEA, and Zomato are already using mobility electric vehicles, if I'm right. Looking ahead, what do you think is the single largest bottleneck to really scale electric cargo mobility in India, particularly from the last mile aspect that you were mentioning?
I think initially the offtake was pretty high from some of these players, Amazon or BigBasket or Flipkart. Lately they have all been shifting towards the two-wheeler space, mostly because of the advent of quick commerce. People want the delivery to be done in 5 to 10 minutes. So we see that market for the three-wheeler last mile delivery space cooling down. In fact, it has almost vanished over the past 3 years. In India, but globally that market is still there, and that's an attractive market, and people are shifting towards more affordable solutions elsewhere as well, not just developing countries, but also developed countries such as Europe, Australia, or in the US as well. Crowded city environments, three-wheeler along with a swappable battery is the perfect platform. Like Mr. Nagreddy had previously mentioned, the biggest challenge is not so much the vehicle. The biggest challenge is the infrastructure that is required to charge the vehicle. And when it comes to Rivian vehicles or those which are used in New York City or some of the other places, the problem for them is space is very expensive, and getting the grid in order to charge the vehicle is also pretty expensive. It takes about 12 months. So in our case with our three-wheelers, what usually happens is they would have additional batteries at their hubs where they can simply swap the battery in less than 5 minutes. So that's what is attractive to them, and they are able to do probably about 75% of their deliveries using these form factors rather than using the old larger vehicle form factors. So that will drive adoption in the last mile delivery space. It's again, affordability is the key. Once you are able to provide affordability, then the adoption automatically it takes place. So that's with respect to the corporates. So in the passenger space, it's mostly individual drivers who purchase the vehicles, but you need to have an anchor ecosystem. So we work with mostly ride-hailing companies, someone like Uber or Rapido or some of these companies, where they would be able to provide the drivers that we require for them to purchase the vehicles from us, while we make it convenient for the driver to adapt electric vehicles with a swappable battery.
Thank you so much. I think you've really touched upon important points around scaling both the last mile cargo mobility as well as, the passenger services, and looking at, innovations around, say, for example, swapping or, partnering with ride-hailing app providers. And that naturally brings me to Shrikantji. You've already worked significantly in partnership, partnering with various, delivery players. You've also worked significantly in the rural space. So what has been, the strongest driver for adoption? And I think more important part of the question would be, is data backing up that with EVs there is higher earnings and lower expenses? A brief response for me, please.
So I think two parts for this question. One is the earning potential, is there or no, and then is there a real cost saving margin, right? A driver partner who is driving for say 100-120 kilometers a day, average spends around 3 to 4 liters a day, 25 days, 400 rupees per day, 10 to 11,000 rupees maintenance and everything on a petrol vehicle. Now today, if someone uses platforms like us, then the cost is almost at 2,000 rupees a week, and it's almost 8,000 rupees a month. Now all the maintenances, insurances, safety, everything is taken care of. Now that gives him a saving of close to 30-35% of monthly, and now the same person is able to run it on the last mile delivery platforms. his earning potential is anywhere close to 1200 to 1300 rupees. There are people who are earning 60,000 rupees also on the platform, but not all the 100% of my cohort base is such. Top 10-15% of the people, higher earning potential, close to 50-60,000 rupees. There are others who are making 40,000. There are people who are just coming for part-time college students who want to just make some pocket money. So the kind of impact is already there, right? So the recent service done by Upaya, the recent service done by the Climate Collective and the Shell Foundation, it has clearly, given us an outcome saying that, hey, people who are working in the last mile delivery space, they're still making a lot of money. And the point here is the biggest challenge is about operators like us. Example, 5 years before, the situation was like electric vehicles were not financeable. Now financing aspect has increased, but the challenge now is supply of the vehicles. Now once the supply of the vehicles have sorted, now the problem has become more of the infrastructure side. Today I have vehicle, I have capacity, I have drivers, I have everything, but I don't have a place to set up my charging station. I don't have place to set up my swap station, right? If I set up my hubs in the center of the city, it creates nuisance to the community. Rather, if I go to an industrial place, industry people would come and saying that you can't run your dairy operations from here. So we are stuck. So it's important for policies to be made, the infrastructure to be developed, and for us to kind of quickly penetrate into these markets because the demand is there. As I said, March 25, I was at 8,000. Today I'm sitting at 17,000, 15,000. So it's more about how do I make this 15 to become 30, 30 to become a lakh vehicles, and for us, it's all about the policy infrastructure that has to be changed.
So you're talking about the need for policy as well as infrastructure. I'm aware that we have just 5. What are the other kinds of levers you think that can be introduced to really scale up that?
So, as you rightly said, I think most of the industry here would also agree. They all go beyond incentives, right? Incentives are given by most of the states, and some of these incentives are curated because, see, for example, for us, we look at any investment beyond 200 crores or beyond 1,000 people employment to be a mega project. And if it is a mega project, then you sit on a table and discuss what priority incentive heads you require, and then we fine tune or tailor make the incentive structuring that way, right? Now, when it comes to less than 200 crores, this is the exercise again we did last time. We divided to say 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 200 or something of that sort. So 200 does not mean that less than 200 is not important. But now in the next 2.0 policy, we are looking to come up with some kind of a structuring additionally so that even investments which are less than 200 also, get a good structuring. Also, a lot of discussion happens, also has a lot of focus, etc. So from the investor's point of view, incentives are not the main thing, but it is about how fast you can, move ahead and start off on ground and start your facility, etc. So it is about ease of doing business, how fast the approvals come or permissions come from the government, and how can, we make it more easier for the players to, break the ground. So for that, we've come up with something called TSI Pass. Of course, it was there from many years before. And that is a single window policy, I think, which is also giving an advantage to the state of Telangana. Apart from that, again, on the adoption side, that was the other part of your question. So in addition to, the charging stations that we have, I think TG Redco is also here in the same building somewhere, but around 1,300 is what the latest figure I have. I could be wrong, but around 1,300 to 1,400 charging stations we have in the state of Telangana, most of it in this city. And also it could be, the smaller one, 60 kilowatt to say now, yesterday we also launched a 360 kilowatt charger, right, in the middle of the city. So apart from the number of chargers that are available, we are also looking at how fast that infrastructure has to increase. So added to this, one additional exercise we did with the EV OEMs, let's say EV OEMs and the car dealerships that are there in Hyderabad. We asked them if, we can do some exercise together to promote electric vehicle usage among government officials itself, government employees itself, right? So of course there are vehicles or fleets that are given to government, but beyond that, at a personal level, if I have to buy an EV, if I'm a government employee, what additional benefit can be given by the manufacturer so that government employees means you look at 3 lakh, 4 lakh people, right? So how fast can that adoption happen? The other angle of it is that once government employees also adopt EVs and they drive EVs, there will certainly be the it's assured that, charging stations will come faster. So from that viewpoint, to have a push also from that side, that exercise was done. But on the demand side, additionally, I would go into the other segments because many of you might not be from the car segment. So from the two-wheeler side, we are looking at rural electrification. There is good exercise with some of these delivery companies because a lot of deliveries are happening at tier 2 towns also now. Swiggy, Zomato, each of them have tried a different model and there is a lot of learnings. If some of you want to give your suggestions, we can work on that. We tried the rural tractor electrification also. So we worked closely with the FPOs, saw some models that can work at the farming, at the farm, etc. So there also some learning curve has happened. Majorly, I would say in the last 3 years, after we started something called the Telangana Zero Emission Trucking Accelerator, Telangana Zeta. This was in 2023 September. So after that, we are focusing quite a lot on truck segment because trucks, as you all know, they on road they are less than 5% from a volume perspective, from a vehicle population perspective, but from a emission perspective, it's beyond 45% of whatever moves on road, right, on transportation. So therefore, that became a very big area where we kind of focused, and that is where a lot of green funding is also available worldwide. So today, as we speak, we are talking to some of the departments of the other countries also, like UK, etc., and pooling in some TFL funds, talking to ADBs and World Banks to have some more structured approach towards how we can move electrification in the trucks, that is mainly medium and heavy duty, and how we can have more of that adoption on ground. One more point. I know we are. So one more main thing that Honorable CM wanted was all of public transport to move towards electric within the ORR at least, right? So that is where Nagireddy sir, of course, spoke about the RTC system, but also on the three-wheeler, which is also a very big a vehicle segment that moves people within the city, right? A lot of people use autos. So for that also we have done an exercise. The policy or the retrofitment policy is about to come out, but there also we spoke to all of the players to have that retrofitment of 1,25,000 three-wheelers within ORR in a kind of a structured way over the next 2 years. And what financing can be brought to it, how can we make the burden lesser for the driver cum owners, etc. And again, one more thing. The solid waste management also is one thing that the government is looking at from the MAUD perspective, from the GHMC perspective to move towards electric. And there also the 600 kilos payload to the 2-tonners that are there. There also we are looking to have more EVs adoption side. And finally, the water tankers. There is this 10,000 liter and 5,000 liter tankers. And today you can see many tankers on road because summer, quite a lot of, very high demand for tankers. So there also, how can we move towards electric or something we are actively looking at.
Thank you so much. That is very comprehensive. I remember Venkat Rajaramanji mentioning that the need for policy 2.0, which closely connects the ESS, the storage part, to the EV. While that part also will, we could possibly take up, but there is good to hear that there are, various segments being looked at in different fronts. Now, just coming to one last, closing comment from all of you. Imagine that we are sitting here at 2030 once again, and what would be that one milestone you think? If it is achieved, we can say that Telangana has really becoming a leading, e-mobility state in the country. You could start from it.
So that one milestone would be where our metros, our buses, our autos, our cabs, and the vehicles that are running on the road are fully connected, fully electric. And we know when I step out of my home, I have a clear path to go to my destination, not crowded, and not a single occupancy vehicles running on the road.
So from RTC side, we are looking at entire RTC fleet in Cure area at least will be completely electric, in whichever the way that is possible.
For me, we should have our city completely as electric. If China can do it in Shenzhen, why we cannot do it in Hyderabad at least?
So I think from an adoption side, we are already getting there. But from the energy side, right, if we have more bases within the city, or at least have a target of getting to, say, a 2 gigawatt, gigawatt hour of battery storage, so that, you're not heavily dependent on the power supply, and there is more confidence for, the charging players, maybe to set up a very big charging, say, outskirts of the city, or in tier 2, tier 1, tier 2 cities, etc. So maybe that is the main.
So I want initial steps to be taken towards convergence of energy and mobility. Probably a ministry on, a combined ministry on energy and mobility is something that is required at this stage. Given that probably in the next 10 years, these two will converge at some point, because you are talking about both energy and mobility. Having, what do I say, interdependence as well as advantage of sharing one's resources with the other.
Thank you very much. I think all of you have mentioned very pertinent closing comments. The need for more energy storage that will be able to, harness green energy and supply it when more needed. And of course, the need for, combining, if possible, the energy and mobility departments. In fact, for the first time in many, many, many decades, you could say, is that there is a convergence of the power of the energy and the transport policy requirement that is coming up. So thank you so much, everyone, and all the esteemed panelists for joining us and sharing your very pertinent remarks and, enlightening us through this discussion. Of course, there are more questions, but due to short, we don't have too much time now. So thank you so much. Thank you to ASSOCHAM for organizing this very interesting panel, and thank you to all the esteemed panelists once again for joining us.